The Principles of Economics with Applications to Practical Problems by Albert Fetter. Chapter 26, Machinery and Labor. Section 1, Extent of the Use of Machinery. 1. A machine is a mechanical device by which power is applied in an automatically repeated manner to change the place or form of things. It is not easy, perhaps not important, to distinguish the machine from the tool in every case. Tools are portions of matter, such as bone, wood, iron, which man guides and directs in applying his energy to things. A machine may be used by the foot, but the hand is the great tool-using member. In many cases, there is a clearly marked distinction between tool and machine. A simple, single piece that can be taken into the hand, as a spade, a hammer, a knife, is a tool. A combination of wheels, levers, pulleys, etc. is a machine. The simplest machine is but a slight adaptation of the tool, by which power may be applied in an automatically repeated manner. The drag develops into the cart, a simple machine. The spinning stick, a tool used in ancient times, developed into the Saxon spinning wheel of the 16th century, the form used when America was colonized. The use of power derived from nature, as that of wind and water and steam, while not the essential mark of machines, is the most characteristic feature of their modern development. Hand machines, such as the hand press and the typewriter, have had important industrial results, but it is the use of power leading to the concentration of industry and the ownership of machinery by the employers that has had the greatest significance in the modern economic problem. 2. Machinery of many sorts has long been used, but the age of machinery begins with the 18th century. Inventions, new machines and new processes, though not frequent, were not unknown in the Middle Ages. But no one class of machines took possession of a whole field of industry and gave rise to a great economic problem by the displacing of labor. The great industrial changes in the Middle Ages generally grew out of political changes, or of changes of routes of trade whereby large industries were disturbed, or of changes in the use of land through new methods and the bringing into use of land in other places. The industrial changes in England at the end of the 18th century, on the contrary, were due mainly to great mechanical inventions. The development of the textile machines for cotton and wool spinning and weaving marked the beginning of the movement. Here, for the first time, were inventions in such numbers, of such a nature, and under such conditions, that they were rapidly and widely applied, affecting the lives of a great number of workers. The steam engine, at the same time, opened up the long line of mechanical inventions, by which wood and iron were shaped and wrought, and the iron industry underwent notable developments. Since that time have taken place in all Western countries that rapid expansion in the use of machines and those notable changes in industrial organization which distinguish our era from all others. 3. Machinery is applicable in very different degrees to the different processes and industries. Machinery can save much labor in some directions, little or none in others. It is especially adapted to the application of power. In the United States, in 1870, in manufactures alone, 2 1/3 million horsepower were used. In 1900, 11 1/3 million, the increase being fivefold. It is said that in the world, in 1870, 3 1/2 million horsepower was furnished by stationary engines, 10 millions by locomotives. Probably today the total is fourfold as great. Machinery is applicable, with this special advantage, to industries that change the form of materials easily transported and widely used. There must be a large output to justify the use of machinery. In 1840, a man's work in spinning cotton was 320 times as effective as in 1769. In 1855, it was 700 times. And though the rate of improvement is diminishing, today the productivity of such labor is still greater. Similar examples are found in the manufacture of shoes and in all varieties of wood and iron work. Machinery is most applicable where there is a compact plant, not so easily where the power has to be distributed over a wide area unless a special track can be provided. Machinery, therefore, has affected manufactures much more immediately and greatly than it has agriculture. It has not as yet, for example, been found practicable to apply steam to plowing to any great extent. As the profitable use of most farm machinery requires a level surface and a large area given to a single crop, it cannot be used as well east of the Allegheny Mountains as in the Mississippi Valley, and it is still uneconomical in large portions of the civilized world. Despite this difficulty, The methods of the farmer of today contrast strongly with those of 100 or 50 years ago. Planters and seeders, reapers, harvesters, corn shellers, hay loaders, automatic unloading forks, elevators, water power, steam, and gasoline engines allow great economies. The labor needed to produce food for 100 people is a fraction of what it was 100 years ago. In many other industries, machines are usable only in a slight measure, indirectly, or not at all. They are of the least assistance in the personal services, and in the work of the thinker, the teacher, the speaker, and the artist. Section 2. Effective machinery on the welfare and wages of the masses. 1. The immediate effect of improved machinery, if suddenly introduced, is almost always to throw some men out of employment. Any sudden change in industry injures men who have become adapted to the work that is effected. A well-mastered trade, a wage earning through intangible possession, may be made suddenly valueless. Men cannot quickly change their methods of working or their place of work. This is as true of change brought about by new trade routes or by scientific discoveries, where machinery does not enter in, as in the case of labor-saving machines. If machines displace labor rapidly, men who cannot adjust themselves to the new conditions suffer, and there are always some who cannot adjust themselves, always some who suffer. It is rarely possible for a man past middle life to shift over into a new trade where his efficiency will be as great and his pay as high as in the old. New methods of puddling iron sent many old men into the poorhouses of Pennsylvania only a few years ago. Even where the total employment increases, the individual sometimes suffers. The increased demand resulting from the cheapening of a product may call for more workers than were employed before the new machinery came in, and yet some of the former workmen may be thrown out of employment. The introduction of the linotype is said to have displaced a large number of hand typesetters, but to have increased greatly the amount of printing. As the machines are expensive and cannot be worked properly by men not highly expert, men past 35 years of age have not been allowed to learn their use. The least efficient men in any trade always suffer most. The change crushes hardest the man at the margin of employment. The more skilled workman can hasten his pace and still earn a living wage in competition with a machine, while the less skilled can but drop out entirely. Innocent victims of an economic change, sacrifices to the cause of industrial progress. Happily, such pathetic incidents are relatively not numerous. Most machinery is introduced in commercial centers and gradually spreads to other factories in such a way that most men can adapt themselves to the change. The effect of machinery must not be judged by the extreme cases. It was found that there were more hand looms in use in England in 1850 than 50 years before, though in the meantime power looms had displaced the hand looms in all the great factories. 2. After time for adjustment, the total sum of employment is as great as before, but the labor is differently distributed. The lump of labor idea, as it is called, is widely held, especially among working men. The notion is that there is exactly so much labor predetermined to be done. Therefore, if machines are introduced, there is that much less for men to do. The logical conclusion, easily drawn, is that every machine reduces wages. Few, however, would go on to the further conclusion that in the aggregate the existing machinery, like an enormous vampire, is sucking the lifeblood of the working people, though traces of such a notion frequently appear. If extreme examples are taken, it may be made to appear either that an increase or that a decrease of employment results from machinery. Industries grade off from those that are capable of developing a greater and greater demand, to those at the other extreme that are capable of a very slight increase, as a result of a lowering of the price. There seems to be practically no limit to the consumption of textiles, provided their price falls. The demand for dress alone is indefinitely expansible. Queen Elizabeth, who had a different dress for every day in the year, has many potential imitators. There is a constant increase relatively, as well as absolutely, in the number employed in transportation, as each census shows. There are more railroad men, relatively, than there were stage drivers and teamsters before the day of railroads. The number of people now engaged in printing books and papers is larger by far than in the days when all the books of the world were written by the old monks in their cloisters. The proportion of workers in agriculture, on the other hand, is less than it formerly was. In part, this is a change in appearance only. for the farmer once made a large part of his tools, which are now made by workers employed in manufactures, yet who in a very real way are aiding in agriculture. In part, the change is, however, the effect of the use of machinery and other improvements in agricultural processes. The amount of raw food products required for each 100 persons is quite inelastic. As it becomes possible to expend more for food, the change is made in quality, variety, flavor, rather than in quantity. The greater part of the saving in the cost of food is, however, expended in other products, and the labor saved in agriculture finds employment in supplying these rising wants. In other cases also, new industries are made possible as machines liberate energy from the production of the more necessary goods. At each census, it is necessary to change the schedule of occupations because men have adopted callings unknown before. 3. In some cases, the introduction of new machines injures particular workmen. The only reason for the use of machinery is to improve the quality or to lower the price of products. If the workers can do nothing but blindly pursue the same tasks, it is to be expected that the wages of hand labor will fall, in a particular trade, into which machinery is suddenly introduced. When, as sometimes happens, employers introduce machines for the immediate purpose of breaking a strike, the workmen are convinced that machinery is the enemy of labor. Because the extensive introduction of machinery in England was at first accompanied by the unhappy result of a lengthening of the hours of labor in factories, this result was deemed to be necessary in all other cases. It was, in fact, quite abnormal and has not been seen elsewhere. The owners of factories wished to keep their machines employed as many hours as possible. The laboring classes of England, being at the same time demoralized and depressed by industrial and social influences that had no logical connection with machinery, had no power to resist this movement. In all other countries of Europe and in America, where the introduction of machinery has been more gradual and normal, it has been followed immediately by a shortening of working hours, as eventually it was in England also. 4. Indeed, the economic effect of improved appliances is logically and inevitably to raise wages. It has been shown above, in the discussion of wages, that if the efficiency of machines increases faster than does the number of workers who use them, the marginal application of labor stops at the higher uses or services of agents and is not forced to the lower. The more perfect the economic environment, the higher the incomes, even of those who own no part of the machinery. A part of this benefit may appear in the form of higher money wages received, a part in the form of the lower price of things bought. Real wages are the essential thing, and as a consumer, the laborer shares with every other member of society in the benefits of improved machinery. The benefits resulting from greater abundance are diffused, and as goods are brought from the high or scarcity end of the scale of value down toward the level of free goods, everybody gains by the abundance and cheapness. The general or average gain is not to be judged by comparing the conditions of the lowest grade of society with those of 50 years ago, for while that grade may have been bettered only a little, it has been possible for large numbers to rise to higher grades because of the use of machinery. The physical tasks are today much lighter than ever before, and a larger proportion of society is engaged in industries that require skill and thought rather than physical labor. That portion of the work is being more and more shifted upon machines. It is important, though, to distinguish between classes of workers in judging of the benefits and evils of machines. A machine is an iron man, it has been said, and comes into competition with other men to lower their wages by outworking and underbidding them. But this iron man can do only automatic tasks. It is not capable of exercising judgment. Every intelligent laborer who can adjust, adapt, fit himself for more intelligent action will rise above the machine and profit by its presence. But the crude physical labor, which can compete only on the plane of automatic machines, must find its field of employment more and more hedged in. If the wages of unskilled labor are not depressed, it is because of the enterprise of others who rise to more skilled employments, and thus reduce the competitors of the lowest rank. 5. The early effects of the factory system on the health, intelligence, and morals of the workers often have been bad, but not necessarily the abiding effects. Some kinds of machines can be more profitably used when they are grouped in great factories, and where this is common, it is spoken of as the factory system. In the ideal modern factory, realized in few cases, Each smaller machine is a part of a larger organization of machinery, so perfect that the material goes in at one end of the building and out at the other without the loss of a single motion. Factories compel great numbers of laborers to live near each other and to work together. The sudden crowding together of people into new social relations is usually bad for morals. Men are moral under the eyes of their neighbors, acquaintances, and families. Habits become adjusted to right standards, and the temptations in new conditions are always great. Until of late, engineering science has not been able to deal with the problems that arise where population is densely crowded, and the early factories, with their surroundings, were most unsanitary. Under the degrading conditions that resulted in some places, especially in England, the effect of machinery on the intelligence of the workers was bad. Whether this is its natural result is debatable, but the factory worker in general does not appear to be less intelligent than the agricultural worker. The alertness of the city dweller is due doubtless to social contact more than to the immediate work he does. This work may or may not be less thought-awakening than work with simple tools. There is a general improvement along all the lines of intelligence, morals, and health. The conditions in the cities as regards health and morals are approaching those of agricultural communities. While many factory districts are forlorn, there may be seen around many factories more happy conditions, better buildings, better sanitation, increased leisure for workers, workmen's clubs, educational agencies, and many other evidences of civic and social progress. 6. The great social consequences flowing from the concentration of industry and wealth are the most serious problems in the relation of machinery to labor. The ownership of tools was widely diffused in medieval times. It is not yet evident how many can own a share in great factories, but the control drifts into few hands. It is not yet clear what social effects great corporations will have on our democratic institutions. Many problems of large industry remain to be solved in the near future. The question in the old form, as to the effect of machinery on labor, is no longer open. It has been clearly answered by experience and explained by theory. The economic effect of machinery is to lift the productiveness and efficiency of the average man. The benefits are unequally distributed, but nearly all share in them to some degree. The question which the future will have to answer is, what will be the social and political effects of the great fortunes that have been made possible by the enormous development of machinery? End of chapter 26.